mentioned the idea of a one-state binational solution. It seems to me a one-state binational solution, which I'll put solution in quotes, seems like, yeah, if you could wave a wand and change minds and remove all the context, all the history, all the horrible history, maybe that would work. But I live in the here and now. It doesn't seem to me a one-state binational solution is really a solution. It seems like a canard, a talking point to kind of gum up a discussion about the here and now. In the here and now, for people who want a two-state solution, for people who understand that Israel exists, it's going to exist, at least in the here and now. It's not going anywhere. For people who want, in that context, a two-state solution, are the tensions inside of liberal Zionism too tense to surmount over the long haul?
No, I don't think they are.
These liberal Zionists you mentioned, the truth is, and it's got to be faced, the West is fixated on the idea of Israel. They can't give it up. And I've often speculated that one of the reasons why the one-state idea, with all the sense that it makes, doesn't get anywhere at official level in Western circles, and no institution, no Western government has supported it or adopted it, that a very basic reason for this is the fact that they understand that if you have a one democratic state, that's the end of Israel as you know it. It's not Israelis being killed. It's the state structure of Israel will end. It has to in a one democratic state. And they resist that. Now, it's an area I want to explore much more. Obviously, we haven't time, because it's very important and very interesting. The Western adherence to the idea of Israel, which they can't give up. It's like an addict. They can't give up on it. And it makes it very difficult, really, to work with them.
I'm nervous on the surface, I look fine. My brain feels heavy, my traumatized mind. And I'm so tired, I can't feel my eyes. Whoa, whoa. I'm petty, but I know how to lie. I feel feelings that I can't describe. I'm not breathing, but I'm still alive. Whoa, whoa.
Shout out to Neoliberal Tears for this.
Shout out to Twitter/X user Neoliberal Tears for resurfacing this clip.
Neoliberal Tears commented at the top of the show, "What happened to my music?" One of my favorite commenters.
Yeah, big
Someone who has so much affection for me.
Keep it in mind.
I'ma give it everything I got.
Prepare for a holiday season of neoliberal tears.
To Israel and Palestine, the issue has been staring us in the face, in my view, for 57 years, which is there need to be two states. They don't have to like each other. They need to be separated from each other. But my recommendation in the Security Council was and is immediately recognize the state of Palestine as the 194th UN member state on the 4th of June, 1967 borders. Do that today. And then we don't have a mystery of a so-called peace process, which is phony and never going to happen. We know what the boundaries are, and then we can get to a few remaining practicalities. I believe that it is the international community that needs to say to Israel and to the Palestinians and the rejectionists, there are many on the other side also, we're going to have two states. They're going to be separated by peacekeepers. They're going to live in security. Whether they ever talk to each other in the next generation, that's not going to be decided right away, but they're going to be two states. If you look at what the Jordanian foreign minister said just after Netanyahu spoke at the UN, the Jordanian foreign minister came out and said, on behalf of the 57 countries of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, I want to make clear we are for peace, mutual security of Israel and Palestine based on the two-state solution. Voila. This is how it's going to have to be.
A shocking statement from Jordan's foreign minister that Arab and Muslim regimes are prepared to, quote-unquote, guarantee the security of the Nazi genocide regime. Sadly, there is no bottom to their willingness to tolerate a monster regime that has to be removed from the region. Willingness to, quote-unquote, guarantee the security in any context of an entity that is systematically exterminating a whole population in Gaza and now extending its genocide to Lebanon, bombing Yemen and Syria, and colonizing land of 3 countries is not the quote-unquote moderation Ayman Safadi thinks it is, but is itself a form of unhinged extremism. The only truly moderate, humanitarian, and peace-loving position is that this Zionist monster regime, like apartheid South Africa, Rhodesia, or Nazi Germany, has to go.
Do you believe that a two-state solution is actually a realistic possibility?
I don't believe a two-state solution is a realistic possibility. Certainly after what happened on October 7th and what has subsequently happened, there's not going to be a two-state solution. What the Israelis are determined to do is create a greater Israel, and that greater Israel includes Gaza, the West Bank, and what we used to call Green Line Israel, Israel as it existed before the 1967 war. And the problem that the Israelis face is that there are approximately 7.3 million Israeli Jews in Greater Israel, and there are approximately 7.3 million Palestinians inside of Greater Israel. And that creates huge problems for Israel because they can't have a meaningful democracy when there are probably slightly more Palestinians than Israeli Jews. And they're unwilling, the Israeli government is unwilling to go to a two-state solution, regardless of what happened on October 7th. But certainly after October 7th, that's not going to happen. So the end result
But just to confirm then, I know the current Netanyahu government is not in favor of that, but you don't think it's realistic anyway, a two-state solution. So if you're Israel, you wouldn't advise pursuing a two-state solution because you don't think it's feasible because of the nature of the antipathy that people in Gaza and the West Bank feel towards Israelis. Is that your position then?
I have long been a proponent of a two-state solution, but I have long argued that it was no longer a viable alternative because I thought the Israelis were not interested after Camp David in 2000 in a two-state solution. But now I think after what's happened, it's almost impossible to conceive of Israel creating a Palestinian state that is right next door to Israel.
Would you say that it's also impossible to conceive, having witnessed the events of October 7th, of a Palestinian state sitting peacefully side by side with an Israeli state?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think given what's happened on October 7th, relations between the Palestinians and the Israelis, we're talking about both sides here. That's what you're getting, have been poisoned to the point where a two-state solution is no longer viable.
So what should our goal be, Professor? We're here to try to work out what the world should be doing in that region. If the two-state solution you've supported for so long, you no longer think is realistic or viable, what's the plan? What should we be trying to do there?
I have no solution. I think what you're going to end up with is more of the same, which is a greater Israel that is an apartheid state. I don't see any viable solution because, in theory, there is only one viable solution, which is to give the Palestinians a state of their own. This crisis or this conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians can only be solved politically. It can't be solved with military force. And the political solution, theoretically, that works, the only political solution that works, theoretically, is a two-state solution. But as you and I discussed a few minutes ago, that train has left the station. So we're going to continue the status quo, which is a greater Israel that is an apartheid state.
Conflicts had to be managed, not resolved. Management, according to the neorealists, meant maintaining the conflict as a low-intensity confrontation, which meant violence would continue to be part of the reality on the ground, but would be tolerable if not in the eyes of its victims, then at least in the eyes of the mediating superpower.
Immediate architecture for a two-state solution, to me, that is absolutely the only way.
Would you be open to the idea of a one-state solution with equal rights? And I ask this because more and more, there's been a lot of individuals, including Israeli scholars like Avi Shlein, for example, who don't think that a two-state solution is any longer possible just because there's so many settlements. Like, for example, in the West Bank, I think the number is 750,000 Israeli settlements. So how do you do two-state given this situation currently? Is one state something that would be on the table for you or that you would consider? Or do you think that two-state really is the only path forward?
Well, I realize it's something that would have to be resurrected, but those settlements have never been legal. They've never been legal. Those people shouldn't be there. So to say, oh, there's 750,000, where do you put them? Back to where they were. I'm sorry. I'm a practical woman. When you talk about one state, if ever there was a prospect for a bloody civil war, it's one state. It's like La La Land. Who's going to govern this one state? I mean, you think it's bad now, them not even living right there together. So I believe that it's going to be quite a long time before a one state is desirable there.
Yeah.
You know, I heard somebody, I thought this was so American. Somebody said there needs to be just a one state, and it needs to be secular. And I thought if ever there was an American blind spot, here are two people who are very clear that their religions matter. And here's this American progressive coming in saying, and it'll be a secular country, as though we're going to impose that. So to me, they both deserve and need sovereign states, both of them. Easy? No, but one state that doesn't in any way, to me, solve a problem.
Well, here's what I will say to that. So a lot of folks were also fearful of, internal disputes with the end of apartheid in South Africa. And on top of that, the other argument, the counter argument is, prior to the Balfour Declaration, there was peace. Arabs and Jewish people, for the most part, lived in that area. And the Jewish population was much smaller, but there was relative peace. So this is kind of the thinking of individuals like Avi Shleim, and how it is even though it's inconceivable now, it is something that could be possible. What would you say to that?
I would say that the days that you're talking about, there were tribes wandering around. There were no nation states. There wasn't a nation state. There weren't any states at all. That's very different than one state. And in today's world, there's going to be a state. So it's not like we can go back to that. And I don't believe that the entire state of Israel is apartheid. There are apartheid laws. I believe that there is clearly the West Bank is, clearly the settlements are, but there are Arabs in the Knesset. I'm not enrolled in the idea that this is not South Africa to me.
Oh, okay, interesting.
If you're saying from the river to the sea, and that's just an Islamist state, that is calling for the eradication of Israel, and it is calling for the genocide of Jews. And I believe calling for the genocide of Jews is just as evil as calling for the as any genocide is not the idea of anyone being told go away, do not exist, is anathema to me. And I hope that you will,
I mean, you mentioned neoliberal tears. You mentioned that you thought that she might have a net negative, and I'd be interested to know what that looks like, or because I'm open to that. If there's something I'm missing that she could actually set the movement back.
Yeah, it's a personal one for me, and it's if she I mean, her position on Israel-Palestine is that apartheid should exist and a two-state solution should exist. And, my counter to that is, would you have a two-state solution in New York where people are segregated by their religion?
Honey, the way I've had this conversation with her.
I'm just telling you from my, I think it's hypocritical to advocate for reparations and ethnic cleansing in another country.
Honey, the way I have had this literal conversation, the way I have sensitively tried to be like, Marianne, I'm not insensitive to the historical reasons why you feel a certain way, the generational reasons that you feel the way you do. But I'm a Black woman in America, and I'm sensitive to it for that reason. And I can't wrap my brain around me thinking that the solution to my people's problems in America, not to say that they're perfectly analogous, or I'm not trying to do false comparisons or anything like that, but Black people just shouldn't live with white people? We should get our own state? What happens to the people who already live in that state? Do we just get Texas? What's the deal? How does this play out for you? I have literally had that conversation with her, at length. So, I don't need, I completely get it, and I agree, and I understand. But people just have to make their independent, and I understand that specifically Palestinians have been thrown under the bus specifically routinely by the left. I get all of that. So I respect people's decisions about how they want to use their vote. I get it.
J Street just took Katie Porter to Netanyahu. Took Katie Porter on a trip to meet Netanyahu, right. And it's an organization that Marianne has also had on her show, and I've listened to, and I might be the only one